I'm selling something that you can't touch or feel, right? It's not a home where you're walking someone through a home. I'm walking someone through a life-changing event.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Builder365 podcast. I'm Jeff Shore. This is the All Things Home Building podcast. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the conversation. The only thing we ask you to bring to the table is a love for the industry that we call home building. Some of the most passionate people that I've ever met are really passionate about this business because, let's face it, we do something really, really special here. Say hello to the co-host of the Builder365 podcast, Amy O'Connor. Hi, Amy.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Yeah, I think they all just answered, we're doing great.
I know, because that's the staple answer, right? So have you ever had anybody go, no, I actually meant it, right? How are you doing? And that throws you off. You're like, well, that's intrusive. Like, I don't know what to say to that.
Okay, but what do you think about the whole fake it until you make it concept, right? People say, well, maybe I'm not feeling all that good. Maybe I'm not feeling all that mentally or emotionally strong, but dang it, I'm going to fake it. What do you think about that principle?
I have an unpopular opinion. I do. I think it's crap. Listen, positive mindset, yes. Talking to yourself kindly, yes, all of that. But I don't want you out there faking it. How about practice till you make it? Like, do the stuff to get you where you need to be. I don't know. Maybe it's the word.
No, well, no. Listen, if when it comes to being in a sour mindset or whatever it is, sometimes we're like, well, I'm in a sour mindset, so I guess I'm going to fake it. I'm like, well, how do you fix the mindset?
Yeah.
Because when we look at it and we say, I'm in a sour mindset, there's a victim mentality that goes into that to some extent, right? And Viktor Frankl once said, everything else can be taken from a person except for one thing, the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. And he wrote that based on his experience in a Nazi concentration camp. He called it the last of the human freedoms. Yeah, it's hard. Right. If he could do it, so I do look at it and say, no, you can choose. You get to pick your mindset. And I remember Zig Ziglar used to talk about that as well. He used to say, you could decide. You could decide. It's entirely up to you. So yeah, let's do it that way. So yeah. So just a little bit about Amy O'Connor. You went to Wake Forest and University of Georgia, or maybe it was University of Georgia and Wake Forest. I know you got a bachelor's in one and a master's in the other. Yeah. You can clarify that. But well, first of all, you go ahead because now everybody wants to know.
Well, I don't know if they want to know, but we'll tell them anyway. I got my undergrad at the University of Georgia, and I did Wake Forest for graduate school.
Okay, got it. What did you envision yourself doing when you were in college?
Well, I guess this sort of started seeping into college, but it really started when I was a senior in high school. I guess it was career day or something like that. And a physical therapist came in. And all I remember her saying is, we make $60,000. And I thought, I want to make $60,000. And so based on that alone, I decided I was going to do a physical therapist. I actually almost went to school that had a physical therapy program. I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, that's what I thought, at least at first. Oh, you want to know what changed my mind, though?
Yeah, please.
I'll make it short. University of Georgia, freshman, 101 public speaking class. And I'm the only freshman in a class full of seniors because you had to take it to graduate, and they all waited to the last minute. And I was the really annoying freshman going, me, I want to do it. And I went up to the graduate student afterwards. I said, can you make a living doing this? She said, yes, it's called organizational communication. And I said, I'm in.
That's awesome. I did not know that. And I think that was the right move because I could picture you as a physical therapist saying, let me just share my notes here. Suck it up. Right.
Yeah. The lack of empathy, that's not a great job for lack of empathy.
I think that's actually where I would have. I appreciate physical therapists. I've worked with physical therapists from the patient side of things. They're wonderful, marvelous people, but it does require a certain amount of patience that I don't think I have. I tend to be more of a rub some dirt on it kind of guy.
People.
So
you have to touch people.
You actually do. Yes. You hadn't thought that one through very much, had you? So yeah. Love it. Well, listen, at the time of this recording, we're just a couple of months away from our annual Sales and Marketing Leadership Summit in Nashville. I am so excited because, Amy, right now this is our life, right? This is what we are doing right now, is pouring ourselves into this. What are you looking forward to the most? I think I know the answer to this, but what are you looking forward to the most?
In general, the people. I mean, I cannot wait. It's people who have been raving fans for a long time or just started as a raving fan and they're here for the first time. It doesn't matter how long. Seeing people come in and excited and hugging and running. And when they run to you and go, Amy, and I'm running going, Carrie, it really is just fantastic. And then even a special subgroup of that, my women's leadership, women from 3 years now, even more special to connect with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. The relationships are the best part of the summit. We just absolutely love seeing all of our friends. It's just awesome. And you leave there after several days where you're exhausted, but your heart is just so full. So yeah it's going to be fun. It's going to be epic.
There's actually some learning there too.
Oh, that's right. We do a little of that. Yes. And and actually after
they're both going to be full. Get ready.
Right. We're recording this episode here very early in the day because we have a full day of summit planning all day after this. So y'all got us while we're fresh. We understand our priorities. We're going to be toast by the end of the day today working on our summit content. So there you go. Yeah. Hey, let's see what's happening in the industry. And hey, there's something interesting here to ask the question, is there room for robotics in home building? Right? Is there room for robotics in home building? And, we so often we look at where robotics are working in, for example, the car industry, where so much of what is done by robotics, or even, I recently took 3 of my granddaughters to the Jelly Belly factory here in Northern California. We went on the tour, but to see the robotics that are in use in the factory, just fascinating, really, really interesting. But the question is, how do you do that if you're stick building a home? Right. We know that there are robotic arms for a 3D printed home. We get that. But what are you doing if you stick building a home? How do you do that? And there's an Israeli company that recently invented a robot that does something very, very unique. It responds to requests for otherwise untrained tasks. Most robots, they're pre-programmed to do some rote task over and over again. And if you watch a video of a car manufacturer, of the robotics, that the arm goes from here to here to here, that's it. But what about incorporating some AI? So let me just show you. We're going to, Nolan, I'm going to have you roll this video here and just give you a sense. This has nothing to do with home building, but we're going to see if the applications aren't there. Nolan, go ahead and roll that video. Now, look, there you go. That's obviously in its infancy. It's pretty simple. Hey, robot, go over there and pick up that thing. But Amy, how much of a stretch is it to look at it and say, could this help us in the way that we build a home?
I mean, I think it can help us do a lot of things. I mean, maybe the things that other people don't want to do, like, hey, pick up that broom and sweep this out. I mean, nobody wants to do that. Man, if we could have a robot. And then if it got really good, maybe even things like taping and texturing walls. I mean, I don't know how far this could go. We're having robots build 3D printed homes. Who knows where we're going?
Yeah. Just on a quick side note on that, does your husband Rich, does he do tape and texture? Because I have a profound appreciation, but that's hard work right there.
I don't ask him what he does. I don't like to get into the details.
But he's always working on your farmhouse there, right?
Yeah.
It's just his deal.
Yeah, it's a constant project.
Yeah, right. I am always working on calling somebody to work on my house. So there you go. Rich and I, we're just like this, right?
Well, we did hire a weed guy. He's coming. There's a guy you can hire who just does your weeds. I am so beyond excited about this because, after being sick for a while, my yard is 12 acres and it's crazy. And he's bringing like 3 guys, and for 2 full days, they're just going to pick weeds at my house. You could not have made me happier.
Well, I have to tell you, I live in California, so when somebody says we just hired a weed guy, it has a completely different connotation. So I'm really glad that you
thank you. Weeds out of the yard, yes, that kind of weed.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
there you go. Yes, so we all know the hockey team lost a heartbreaker to the Knucklepucks 3-2. I know you always have to know how we did there. It was a tough loss. Hey, a special thanks to our partner for this podcast. Builder365 is powered by Open Door for builders. Easy sales, smooth moves. You can learn more about the work they do to support home builders at opendoor.com/builder365. Amy, we have a very, very special guest today, Erica Lockwood of Joseph Chris Partners. She is an executive recruiter, a headhunter, if you will. Amy, have you ever been on the employee side of a headhunting experience?
No, I've gotten all my jobs from like word of mouth and somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah. I haven't either.
But I know that. I mean, everybody knows Eric. You say Erica Lockwood in the industry, everybody knows who that is.
There's no question about it. And it's a fascinating field. And you're right. Erica is just leading the charge. I had a wonderful opportunity to sit down with Erica, just chat about the world that she lives at and has lived in for 23 years in executive recruiting, with some very, very different market conditions along the way. Amy, imagine what it would be like to be an executive recruiter in 2009.
I knew you'd say that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, what do you do with that? But she's a pro's pro, an absolute legend in the industry. I think you'll enjoy this conversation with Erica Lockwood. Erica Lockwood, so good to talk to you. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation because, I think a lot of people know about know a little about the world of recruiting, but maybe not a lot. So before we get into that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you live, what you like to do for fun. Just who is Erica Lockwood?
Well, thank you first of all for having me and inviting me on. And congratulations on the podcast world, entering that crazy world. It's crazy.
It's re-entering. We actually had one before, and then we shelved it during COVID. So now we're sort of launching back up. So there you go.
Well, good. Yeah. That's right. Well, you're always on camera, so it's all good.
I do spend a fair amount of time behind a camera. There's no question about it. Yeah.
No doubt. So thank you. But I am Erica Lockwood. I am with Joseph Chris Partners. We are an executive search firm that focuses really predominantly on the home building side. We do some on the commercial, but my world is home building. And I live in Dallas. I moved to Dallas about a year plus ago, getting married.
From where? From California by chance?
No, that's everybody else in Texas.
Exactly.
I moved. I'm originally from the Midwest. Grew up in Michigan and lived in Indiana. And in 2020, during the pandemic, hey, why not? I moved to Texas, to Houston, where our corporate office is. But yeah, I moved to Dallas last year, fall in love and all that good stuff. So getting married next week. So lots of stuff going on.
Congratulations.
Thank
you.
That's
fantastic.
Thank you.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you. Thank
you.
And
what do you like to do for fun when you're not working?
When I'm not working, I love music. I grew up playing the piano. I started playing when I was 6 years old. So I gravitate toward music. Do a lot of stuff in the yard. Just right now doing a lot of home improvement. So,
Love it.
I would say, is that fun? Yeah. I like to do a lot of stuff myself. So it's gratifying. Yes.
Tell us, how does one get into the executive recruiting business? It's an interesting niche. There is a specific talent and skill set that you probably don't know that you have until you're in it. Tell us a little about your story and how you got into this business.
Sure. I've always said that it's something that you don't go to school for, right? I think you can get a human resources degree, but it's not the same thing. Right? It's way not the same. It's kind of like so many people I've talked to through the years that are in home building. They didn't really think of, that wasn't what they said they wanted to do in kindergarten when they stood up in class and said, I want to be a firefighter or a nurse, right? And so I just ended up as like a friend that said, hey, you want to come and try, work in this, interview for this company. And, really long story short, much like everyone else, it's kind of like, somebody and somebody introduces you to something that you're like, hey, I really like this. So I started out more on the staffing side, temporary to permanent placement, but ended up going into the home building sector in 1998.
How much of what you do is just plain selling, either selling a candidate on taking the right job or selling a builder to say, I've got the right candidate? How much of what you do is just plain selling?
100%. 100%. It's no different when I'm talking to new home salespeople. I'm like, I get it. I get your space, whether it's management or, even if someone's in the management world, they started out in new home sales. And it's sales. And it's interesting because it is, I'm selling something that you can't touch. You guess you could, but you can't touch or feel, right? It's not a home where you're walking someone through a home. I'm walking someone through a life-changing event potentially in their world. And it can be a very positive thing. And like life-changing for sure. So it is sales. And then on the company side, talking with builders about what I do, that's the other scope of it. So it's a very interesting world to be in.
Sure. Yeah. We've utilized your services. You brought us the one and only Michelle Bendine, who is, by the way, an absolute superstar, a seriously talented professional. Do you, as a recruiter, do you feel a certain attachment to those who end up being a good fit and then prospering in their new environment?
Oh, I absolutely do. Even if I don't communicate with an individual daily or whatnot, it is so exciting for me to watch people grow. In fact, I just sent an individual a text this morning. It just hit it just rolled into my mind. I don't know if you have those thoughts when you're taking a shower, like, that's a really good idea. And so I reached out to someone that I had actually placed forever, and I say forever ago, in a sales management role in Ohio. While he lived there, he's now a division president for one of the national builders and lives in Florida. And I said, I'm so blessed to be able to watch you grow in your career and be so successful.
Yeah. But sometimes you're approached by someone who just doesn't have it. And they're likely not to be hired anywhere. Yes. How do you handle those situations where maybe they failed at 3 different builders and now they're coming to you and saying, can you help me find another job? What do you do with somebody who is really just struggling to find their place in the world?
Well, that's a very good question. I try to offer advice, and much like the recruiting world, like we said, it's sales. There's some people that aren't cut out to be recruiters. Right. There's some people that aren't cut out to be in new home sales or in the home building industry as a whole. And so just kind of talk to them about, well, what do you really like to do? I think probably the flip side of it is that, if there's some negativity or maybe their attitude toward responses or feedback, I get pretty I don't want to say bold, but hey, do you have an issue when somebody tries to help you and give you constructive criticism, because that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So you got to turn into a counselor to a large extent at that point.
Really do.
Yeah. Well, what do you think are some of the most common mistakes that people make when they're searching for a new job? Because I'm sure you've seen it over time, and maybe it's just like it's that horrible resume, or they're just not presenting themselves well. Or what do you think are some of the more common mistakes that people make?
Well, I would say number one is just chasing after a title. That's a big mistake. Number two is chasing after a dollar amount, a dollar figure. And I just think in general, people make mistakes by maybe sharing too much or having that negative attitude about their last positions or their last boss or whatnot. There's a very professional way to say, hey, our philosophies did not align, right? Versus that was the worst place I could have ever worked. These are this is horrible, whatever. We've certainly heard it all, but, just probably sharing too much and not really thinking about it and reflecting on it's kind of like a relationship with two people, whether they're friends or romantic. It takes two people to make something work.
It's interesting. When I've counseled executives over the years in the home building industry, and I've seen them move from one company to the next because, as you said, they were chasing the title or they were chasing the dollars. And then I looked at these people and I said, you're a high character individual. The culture that you're going to align yourself with is really important. And you went there. What are you doing? And you can almost see that this is going to be a slow motion train wreck that's about to happen. And I've just as I've coached people to say you're mismatched in your own organization. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you're bad or that the organization is bad. But if there's a cultural mismatch, it just doesn't work. And I'm sure that's something you've seen quite frequently in your line of work.
Absolutely. Every day. As a recruiter, we spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and you get the notifications. So-and-so, I'm so excited. I took this new position, and I'm like, oh, that's probably not going to work out very well.
You make a little side note in the file that says, get back in touch with this person in 6 months because they might need my services.
Exactly. And it's not because, it's that cultural misalignment.
Yeah. Right.
And I think the other mistake, kind of going back to the question, another mistake that people do make is maybe, let's say they're relocating to another market and they don't have as much of a network in that particular local region, and they take a position with a company that they don't really know much about, or they didn't do their homework. That, I don't want to say that always ends up being not a good situation, but I've seen that more often than I would like to say.
One thing that I've seen, Erica, over the years is that I'll have a manager or an executive call me, and they're in a bad strait, and they'll say, "Can we have a confidential conversation?" And there may or may not be tears involved, but they're just in a bad way. And I'll ask the question. I can tell they're seriously misaligned with their own organization. They're not appreciated. Their boss is very difficult to work with, whatever the case may be. And I'll ask the question, how long have you been feeling this way? And I will generally, well, since I started, or, for the last 5 years or whatever it is, I'm like, now you're calling? So the question that I have for you, how soon should someone reach out to you if they're feeling like, I just don't know if this is going to work? Because my guess is that most people wait too long. Maybe I'm wrong on that. You're the expert, but that would be my guess, is that most people wait too long.
I think that's human nature, that you hope tomorrow will be different. You hope that the responses or the environment will be different tomorrow. It's not the weather. It's your professional life, right? The weather certainly changes all the time. But, the big issue is that when most people make a change professionally, the last thing they want to do is have that on their resume where they were someplace for 9 months. Or, gosh, do I not put it on there if I wasn't there for a year? It's like, well, you really should, because we're going to do a background check and we'll show up, and then you'll look dishonest or whatever. But, sometimes things can change even after you're in 5 years. Maybe there's a leadership change and it's completely different, like a total turnaround to the negative of, the different person coming in and their management style or their approach. Maybe a company has been acquired and you're in the midst of it. Gosh, there's people that have gone to a company, they've been there for, 6 months, a year, or whatever, and then they get acquired.
So when we see that happen, we see that people are in that bad state. And I get the whole idea that, maybe this is going to get better, and so we'll just sort of hang out. But they end up waiting too long, and then that really does have a huge psychological toll. Then they're asking the question, as you said, should I leave? What's that going to look like on my resume? But are you of the opinion that job hopping, such as it were, is not nearly as big as an issue as it would have been, say, 20 years ago?
It is still an issue, but I think that, and it'll be probably necessarily, the mindset needs to shift, because people just aren't like our grandparents. You work the same place for 30 years, you retire, you get your pension. It might have really stunk working there at certain times, but you stuck it out because that's what everybody else did. But there's a lot of the 2-year-itis or 1-year-itis, mindsets that some hiring managers can't get past, especially if they are, especially if their makeup is they've been at the same company for 15 years. It's like, well, why can't I want to surround myself with people like that. So I do feel like that shift will have to change, because people are changing more often, and it's not always a bad thing.
But the pressure then is on the candidate, though, to come forward and say, here's a plausible story.
Right.
Yes, I moved every 2 years, but I can tell you how that made strategic sense for my career. Without a story, it seems to me, as thinking through as an employer, it's like, well, I want you for longer than 2 years, but there's no evidence here that you're going to stay longer than 2 years, right? So that it seems to me there's got to be a good story from the candidate at that point.
Right. I mean, that's where, like, on my end, before I would present or make an introduction to one of my clients, I would just go through their resume and just say, hey, why did you leave here? Why did you leave there? And to me, if I'm feeling confident that they were plausible reasons why, then I share that and let them have that conversation. But I do think that the mindset is, from the hiring manager's perspective, is like the whole law of recency, right? It's like, well, you haven't stayed anywhere more than 2 years. Why would I feel like that's any different? However, I'm always a big supporter of, if you can have someone who's really wonderful at their job for 2 to 3 years, 5 years, and they leave it better than they found it, awesome.
It's a good trade-off at that point. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you about a trade secret here, and I'm just going to put you on the spot. As now, this doesn't happen to me anymore, but it used to happen a lot when I was an executive working for a home builder. I would get an email from our recruiter, and it would say, "Hey, we're looking for somebody who fits this bill in this marketplace. If you have anybody, please let us know." Here's the question. Was that recruiter asking me if I'm interested, or were they legitimately saying, do you know of somebody that is interested?
Oh, that's a very good question. We talk about that in our office a lot. For me, when I'm asking that of someone, if I would, if you were working at, wherever, and I sent you that message, that's because I really am just asking you, assuming that you're not interested. But I think there's a little bit of yeah, I'm not going to come right out and ask, but if you know of anybody, and then the hopes are, oh, well, me, well, why wouldn't you ask me? I guess I'm just I'm just me. So I'll say, hey, are you interested? I'd love to talk with you. If you're not, that's okay. I'd still love to talk with you because you might know someone. That's kind of how I put it out there.
Right. Sure. All right. Makes sense. A lot of builders they've got openings. They're trying to figure it out, and they're going to look at LinkedIn and they're going to look at resumes. What is the downside of trying to hire just by looking at LinkedIn or looking at a resume in order to decide who you're going to bring on? I mean, obviously there's some benefit to a resume and there's some benefit to a LinkedIn, but there are downsides if I overweight the resume and the LinkedIn. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yes, because this is another regular conversation that we have. First of all, I will tell you, just because I live on LinkedIn, because I'm a recruiter, a lot of individuals' LinkedIns are not even updated. They may or may not have put a whole lot of information out there. You're also making an assumption that whatever title that person has is exactly what your title is. Project manager is not always a project manager in every single environment. Every single company is different. Also, on the flip side of that, though, a resume it's black and white. It's up for interpretation, and you can have a perfect resume of someone that you think, man, this person walks on water. They're right up there with Jesus, right? And when you have an opportunity to speak with that person, they're not a culture fit. And if you're just hiring based on this magical resume of someone having 10 years of experience with this builder, my gosh, this would be such a win, and you ignore the lack of culture fit, it's not going to be a good deal for either side, right? So there's that mix. I'm because I talk all the time on the phone, it's how you really get to know someone.
Right. One last question here for you, Erica, and thanks for your very valuable time. This is really insightful. There are times when people are going to look and say, well, I suppose it's time for me to look at a recruiter, but man, as soon as I do that, now my boss is going to find out that I'm looking for a job, and then I'm sunk. How do you address that concern that once they talk to a recruiter, that the word's going to get back, that they're on the market and they're actively looking?
Well, you have to trust the person that you're talking to, right? And I get that a lot. I get that kind of response where it's like, I don't want to put myself out there because someone's going to find out. It's just inevitable. It's usually because it's happened to somebody that they know or whatever. So you have to trust the person that you're talking to and just do your best. It's kind of like going to, shopping new homes, shopping new companies, shopping recruiters. You've got to do your research and ask other people if they have any experience working with this individual, because your professional life which also equates to your financial stability potentially, could be on the line. I'm not going to lie and say that there aren't recruiters that just kind of throw stuff out there and put a resume in front of a company that the person doesn't even know that that's happening. That's not something, there's no way that I do that or that our company does that. But unfortunately, it does happen. Gotta know.
But if you can't trust your recruiter, you got to find a new recruiter if you can't trust them.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Really good stuff. Before we let you go, we're going to put you on the hot seat here. A few rapid fire questions, rapid fire answers about your life. You ready?
All right.
Okay, here we go. The artist or band you listened to most in high school?
In high school, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, okay. I get fits. I get it. The most beautiful place you've ever stood?
On the beach at St. Lucia.
Love it. A book you read a long time ago that had a lasting impact?
The Outsiders.
I don't know that. I don't know that. I'll have to look it up.
No. Well, that rapid fire question is backfire because I'm like, who wrote it? Who wrote it?
Don't worry about it.
Yes.
You got Google for that.
The Outsiders. Great.
Your first car.
My first car was a Charger, a Dodge Charger.
Nice, riding in style. All right, and finally, your first celebrity crush.
Oh goodness, Rob Lowe.
Yeah, that's a good solid choice right there. You're off the hot seat, and Erica, I can't thank you enough. Really interesting. I know our audience just. Yeah, to them, the world of recruiting is just this big mystery zone, and you've pulled back the curtain a little bit and made us all a little smarter. Thank you for your very valuable time. Always good talking to you, Erica.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, there you have it. It's great stuff with Erica. It's really interesting. My guess is that our listeners right now, Amy, are like their head is spinning. It's like, how do I evaluate my own career along those lines? I know. Yeah. What advice would you have, Amy? But let's go all the way back. For somebody who's new in the industry, what advice do you have for somebody who's new in the industry?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, it's a little couple pieces of advice here for somebody new. One, keep all that. And when I say all, if you're just listening to this and you're not seeing me, I'm doing it with my hands in a really weird way. And what I mean is keep this little shininess, right? They come out when they're first in the industry, they're brand shiny new, they're happy, they're excited. And then we see that shine dull a little bit over time unless you keep polishing it up. So keep your shine, keep the energy, keep the happiness. And the second part of that would be keep the relationships. This business is a relationship more than any other business I'm aware of, and what you do matters.
Yeah, love it, love it. I would just add on top of that, beware the plateau. When you're new in the industry, the learning curve is so steep. It's incredibly steep. But then you learn what you need to learn, and that's when you plateau. And we just go flat. And when we stop learning, it's a real problem because the rest of the world is changing around us. So the net effect is that you kind of get dumber. So beware the plateau. Constantly push your own learning curve, even when you don't have to. So early on, it's going to happen to you, but you got to take control of that yourself. Amy, you got a sarcastic quote of the week before we wrap it up?
Yes, I do. There are two types of people in this world. The people who say, it's my birthday week, and the people I want to hang out with. Molly McKierney.
I like it very much.
I know you would. I knew you would as soon as I saw it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And just good stuff from all of you. Thank you for the kind comments that we're getting about the Builder365 podcast. Thank you for those of you who are sharing these episodes and liking and subscribing. Remember, you can get the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you pick up your podcast. But if you're only listening, you can be watching these on YouTube. So go over to YouTube, subscribe to the Builder365 podcast. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Keep enjoying this business that we love so very much. We'll see you next time.